welcome to the program. I'm Nancy Kachingira. This is the Daily Global, where we're bringing you the top stories from right around the world. We're going to start in Israel, where protests are continuing after Parliament approved a key part of a judicial reform plan that has divided the nation. The reform will limit the powers of the Supreme Court to challenge government decisions. Well, the law was voted through after the collapse of compromise talks, which were brokered by the country's president. Opposition parties boycotted the vote. Furious protesters have called the move an attack on democracy, and they're continuing to protest on the streets of Jerusalem. Israel's Justice Minister said the government will ensure that the will of voters is respected. Let's go live now to Jerusalem, where we can speak to Hanna Lerner, who is head of the School of Political Science, Government and International Affairs at Tel Aviv University. It's obvious to see from those pictures from the streets of Jerusalem that there's a lot of opposition to this move. Tell us why.
Well, today we are witnessing a watershed moment in Israeli politics. The specific law which passed today limits the court's ability to use arguments of reasonableness when considering government's decision. In other words, it eliminates an important judicial tool as an act of check on the government power. And the concern is that today's legislation is only the first step in the coalition's explicit plan to weaken Israeli judiciary.
Well, for their part, Netanyahu's government has argued that the reforms serve to strengthen democracy because the Supreme Court has accrued too much power over politics in recent decades. What's the basis for their argument?
Well, it's important to understand the current coalition is the most extreme right-wing coalition in Israeli history. So indeed, 6 months ago, the Minister of Justice announced sort of a general plan for a judicial overhaul, which includes several parts, but and today's legislation is only the first part of it. They propose to fully control the coalition, the appointment of justices to the Supreme Court, a limitation of judicial review powers, prevention of any review of basic laws, which are part of the Israeli incomplete constitution. And it's important to realize that under the Israeli system of government, there is hardly any separation of powers between the legislature and the executive branches. So the judiciary is the main check on government power.
So with that check, as you say, that main check for the executive, which is the judiciary, being stripped of this particular power that lies in this clause around reasonableness, how significant of a moment do you think this is for the democratic project in Israel?
Well, I think it's a very significant moment, and it's part of an ongoing sort of revival of the democratic camp in Israel. What we've witnessed in the last 6 months is the emergence of a new political camp in Israel, the liberal, mostly secular, but not only secular camp that organized against the judicial overhaul and continues to fiercely fight for these values: democracy, equal rights and duties, civil liberties, and they have no intention of giving up. And I think this camp will make an important impact on Israeli politics in the next few months and years.
Well, we're at this stage now where this key clause has been pushed through. What can the people who oppose this move still do about this?
Well, as the protest movement, as we can see, hundreds of people are protesting in the street in the last 29 weeks. Every weekend, there have been gatherings and crossroads, bridges across the country. But, you know, the crisis can also be an opportunity. Experiencing such crisis politically and social crisis in those last few months made people in Israel realize that we need to establish clear rules of our democratic sort of game. It is important, it could be an opportunity to complete the ongoing project of constitution making, which began 75 years ago in Israel. And I'm part of a group of academic and social activists who wrote a detailed proposal to convene a constituent assembly for Israel, an elected body whose purpose would be to formulate, based on broad consent, the fundamental principles and rules for Israeli democracy. So this is one sort of avenue where we could continue.
Well, a pivotal moment, it seems. Hanna Lerner, thank you very much for sharing your analysis with us. Hanna joining us there from Tel Aviv University. Thank you.